I asked the question of why are we here, and as I started collecting my thoughts for tonight, I thought back over different opportunities I've had to come speak to a group of people, and it was certainly a pleasure to be invited to do this tonight. But years ago, I basically got paid to drive, talk, and eat. And for those people that like to drive, talk, and eat, that's like a dream job. I mean, you kidding me? You're going to give me money, you're going to give me a car, and you're going to pay me to drive, talk, make friends, and eat. And I did that. And I remember the single most engaged group of people I ever had in my life. I started the meeting. I was rolling out a presentation. And I asked that question of why are we here? Why are we here? And that particular night, that particular day, the answer I delivered was, in fact, very much why they were there. See, it was a business and they were there for profits, and I explained to them how they could be more profitable. But tonight, the question being asked of why are we here has a slightly different answer. It does for my life, and I would say if we ask it individually of everybody in the room, it would probably be as numerous answers as we have people in seats. So why are we here seems to be a question that a lot of people are plagued with. See, a study was done in April of 2021, and over 57% of Americans struggle with a sense of purpose. That's over half of the American population. You see, in 2011, just 10 years earlier, that number was only 51%. You would think with all the advancements in technology and information and media that we would actually be moving closer to this answer that plagues many people of why are we here, and instead we're moving the other direction. And when you consider that 6% more Americans and the amount of millions of Americans we have, that's a huge number. And you think, oh, okay, that's just in America because we have all this stuff, we have all these problems. That's just an American thing. But see, the fact of the matter is, in October of 2021, a different group did a different study globally, and 65% of the people in a select set of 3,500 employees around the world said, we're struggling with understanding our meaning in the workplace, why we're even here and what we're even doing. And of that group that was studied, over half of them said, I'm longing to find a way to be more significant in the world, to make a greater contribution to society. That's a tragic number. And I wrote something down. You see, we actually, this is a great group, and I wanted to make sure that I got this right, and I find myself without my glasses, so I may need somebody out there in the audience to hold this for me, if you could, on the back row maybe. Oftentimes when people state they are looking for purpose, what they really mean is they're looking for value in the world. And this is expressed by asking the question of why am I here? You see, tragically, we live in a world where people desire to find significance and value in a world that is hardwired to classify individuals based on a social hierarchy that is derived from wealth, fame, influence, ability, and countless other factors that we deem measures of success or significance. Furthermore, we live in a world that's driven by identity that attempts to define an individual's value by their place in the world based on a number of aspects of that person's life that often misrepresent their true worth. I didn't read that somewhere. That's an observation that I've made in my lifetime. That's something I've personally felt in my life. And I think based on the statistics I just read to you, a number of people feel the same way. So, why are we here? There was a flyer, there was a video, and something to do with something called the SurgeonEffect that has yet to be explained to you. But the subtitle on that was, Find Your Calling, Live with a Sense of Purpose, Make a Difference in the World. And I would have to guess there's maybe at least one or two people in the room that struggle with that. Certainly, I've been no exception within my life. And it begs the question, if that's such a big question, maybe there's an easy answer. Maybe tonight, by coming here, maybe there's something I've discovered that's simple that you can just take the answer and, hey, thanks for that, and we'll roll on down the road, appreciate the cup of coffee, and we're out of here. Could it possibly be that easy? And the answer is, it may not be as difficult as you think. Now, to illustrate this identity of a surgeon effect, I need everybody in here to participate in something. And I know each of you are capable of doing it because you've done it your whole life. You're currently doing it now. And if you stop doing it, I'll be able to identify you very quickly, because what I need everybody to do is just breathe. I just need you to take a breath. But there's a catch. I want you to do it just a little bit differently than you normally do. You say, I want you to breathe with a little more purpose and intent. I want you to take it in a little deeper. I want you to hold it just a little longer, and I want to let it out a little bit slower. And I'm going to do this with you as much as you're comfortable with doing this. Here we go. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Doesn't that feel good? If it doesn't feel good, see me afterwards. You probably did it wrong. Because you know this. I mean, you know this. Like whenever life kind of gets a little, and somebody says, hey, you need to take a deep breath. Or when life's a little, and somebody doesn't tell you that, you just do it. And you go, and somebody says, what's wrong? My wife does that to me. She's like, what's wrong? It's like, it feels good. Take a deep breath. You see? Because when we take a deep breath, something happens. There's an effect. Our bodies take in more oxygen. Actually, I got to read this. It was great. Scientifically speaking, it decreases our stress. It relieves our pain. It improves our immunity. It increases our energy. Our mind tells our body, hey, you need to slow down. So it lowers our blood pressure. It reduces our heart rate. It improves our digestion. And last but not least, it stimulates our lymphatic system. And I don't even know what that means, but it sounds fantastic when you put it together with everything else. You see, there's things that we can do in our world, there's things that we do in life that if we did them just a little bit differently, if we focused just a little bit more, they would have an effect. They'd have an effect on us. They'd have an effect on our world around us. They'd have an effect on the people in our lives because, you know, when you're a little stressed, if you can slow yourself down a little, it doesn't just make your life better. I promise you, that person that you're kind of maybe getting a little wound up, it changes their life. And so if that's the case with something as simple as just breathing, I wonder if there's something else that we can do that has a bigger effect in our life, has a bigger impact. And I'm here to tell you, in fact, that there is. And I've got notes, not for my benefit, because this is something that's a passion for me. I've told it over and over again. It's really more for your benefit, because I could go on and on about this forever. And so this is kind of some guardrails to help keep us in a time constraint, so we're not here all night where we really do need the coffee because we're way past bedtime. You see, this struggle with identity came from my personal journey. See, I grew up in what would be considered a simple farm life. I grew up in southwest Oklahoma. And what I didn't understand was that simple life was actually a remarkable life. The principles that I learned there were the foundational elements that have brought me to a point this evening where I shared some information with somebody and they thought, hey, this is worth sharing with somebody else. You see, they were the fundamental elements of my life that as I began to interact, as I found my wife, they became the pillars of the way I wanted to navigate life, of who I wanted to become. But I didn't completely understand them. I didn't put them all together at that point. And so I had goals, I had ambitions, I had dreams, and through college, I did well, and out of college, I landed a dream job. I mean, Fortune 500 company, ivory tower, suit and tie every day. I mean, it was great. And I remember returning to a class reunion, people saying, wow, you really made it. And I remember how that felt. It felt really good because, that was different than the simple family farm that I grew up on. But a number of years later, I had resigned from that job. I started a business, and along the way, my brother came along. And things don't always go the way you think they will. You see, I was one of these people that believed I could control everything that went on in my world. You can influence it, you can affect it, you can respond to it, but I had this belief that I can control it, and that frustrated me. And somewhere about 10 years down the road, I found myself one night, That age-old saying, after I poured all my blood, sweat, and tears and energy into this thing, I've turned my life around 360 degrees. For those of you that are mathematically challenged, that means I was right back where I'd started. See, I found myself in a shop one night working on a machine. I was covered in grease, I was covered in oil, I was dirty, I was nasty, and I thought, man, this is where I was 10 years ago. How in the world did I get here? This is not what I thought life would be like. And I thought to myself, I was really struggling with this sense of self-worth. Maybe some of y'all out there, maybe somebody watching is. But in that moment, I thought, hey, if this is what I want life to be like, what do I want it to be like? I thought, well, I go back to medical school. I could be a doctor. I'm young. I could be a surgeon. If I can fix a machine, I could fix a person, right? It's not that much different. There's hoses and wires and stuff going everywhere. How hard can it be? It was really that simple of a thought. And while I didn't pursue that, I thought, man, this is a neat idea. A surgeon, I'm a machine surgeon. Yeah, look at me go. And so it became this identity that I kind of stepped into, and I carried it around like, rocks in my head for a number of years, and I found value in that for myself. The only problem is I didn't see and didn't recognize and didn't realize the true value of it until sometime down the road. Because, see, what I looked at and what we look at in our world is the identity of a surgeon. As we go back to some of these things I listed about our social hierarchy that our world revolves around. People are like, I don't get this surgeon. I don't understand it. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, I love to do this. Let's play a game. You're introduced to two people, and one of them happens to be in this room tonight. You see, I was here last night. I was just kind of preparing some things. I met a young man named Tyler, and I'm so grateful for you to be here. And the question we ask, the question we all normally ask is, who are you, and what do you do? And in that instant, our mind fills in a profile about people, whether we consciously or subconsciously do it. We understand something about this based on the world that we know and we operate and we live in. And for the longest time, I thought, oh, hey, it's the identity of surgeon, that's cool. And when I play this game, we somehow don't bestow the same level of dignity on other people. See, I've got a friend named Daniel. I asked Daniel, hey, Daniel, can I share a little bit about you tonight? And he said, yeah, man, go for it. And see, if we were in a social event and I said, hey, I want you to meet my friend Daniel, he's a plumber. And Daniel's told me that he's got friends who are like, really, a plumber, Daniel? And we'd be like, wow, plumber, cool. I know what that entails. Good stuff. But if I introduced you to a guy named Joe, I don't have a friend named Joe, but if we had a friend named Joe that was a surgeon, you'd be like, wow, a surgeon. That's fascinating. We might have a longer discussion. We may have a higher level of interest because of what Joe can do. Daniel, we wouldn't be able to go and say, so what plumbing school did you go to, Daniel? What kind of plumbing do you specialize in? No, we don't do that. But for a surgeon, we have this natural knowledge because of who they are, what they do, what it takes to become one, that will place them up on a pedestal sometimes. Because it takes years of hard work, it takes years of dedication, it takes a tremendous amount of skill and intelligence to become one. And for that, there's usually a tremendous amount of reward. We're good, Justin. Why does that not apply to other people's lives, to the impact that they make in our lives? You see, really, when you boil this identity down, and you start to look at a surgeon as being something you can step into, an identity you can understand, a surgeon's true purpose, their true intent in this world is actually to be a servant. You see, nobody's born a surgeon, they become one through choice. There was a guy, lived a long time ago, maybe some of y'all have heard of him, a fellow named Solomon. The world over pretty much understands him to be one of the wisest people that ever lived. He had some pretty good thoughts. And Solomon says, so as a man thinketh, he is. And so in this world that we're consumed with identity, if we take the illustration of a guy named Daniel that's a plumber, oh, hey, a plumber, cool for you. And we have a different level of dignity that we'll give that guy. What if you are the plumber? Do we have a different level of dignity that we place upon ourselves as we look at our identity in this world? Our purpose, our calling? the difference that we can make in other people's lives, or we just reserve that for people that are surgeon or people that are notable or people that are public figures. My argument to you is anybody that pursues a noble cause, that puts their entire self into it for the benefit of other people, deserves our dignity, deserves our respect. And yet somehow we don't do that. You know, as we talk about this effect, this surgeon effect, you know, something simple that we can do, something as simple as breathing deeply. Has anybody in here ever done like a self-help book? Read one? Listened to a book on audio? Listened to a motivational speaker? Read a cookbook, okay? We're not judging here. I mean, it's okay. I mean, See, I've been a person that's been about making improvements in my life. I've tried to be a better me tomorrow than I was today, and a better me today than I was yesterday. And the funny thing about self-help books and about, you know, things that help you improve your life is they come with a lot of steps. Has anybody noticed this in these things? You know, I've been privileged to meet some New York Times best-selling authors, and they've had a profound impact on my life as I read. Actually, I didn't read. I listened to them because I'm a busy person, and they were fantastic information. But they were decisions, they were principles, they were habits of leadership. There's one author, I mean, I love the guy to death, and he's had like 20 laws. I'm like, are you kidding me? If you're a guy like me and you have ADD, I mean, you've already forgotten number 1 by the time you got to 5. It's just not happening. And so God, knowing that about me, gave me something simple that I could grab onto. It's been something that's helped me navigate life, and it's just the identity of a surgeon as it started to become something more than just about me. It started to become something about other people. The meaning of it grew. The impact of it in my life grew. Because initially, again, it was about seeing myself differently and the contribution I was making. Like, what did it matter if I was working on a machine anyway? You see, at that point, it was about meeting the needs of a customer. It was about meeting the needs of my family. It was about meeting the needs of employees, because we had a job to do, and if we didn't effectively produce in that, then there was going to be a cost. It's going to be detrimental to us. It's going to be detrimental to other people. But what I began to see as this message grew and over time became refined, I started to see the value of other people in my life. I mean, if we want to talk about the effect, can you imagine what the world would be like if we began to, no pun intended, operate in the capacity of a surgeon? What if we started to look at each other and know that we had a place and we had a role to fill in other people's lives? And that every action that we made a difference in their lives and potentially the lives of their family? And what if we understood that everything they did, and if they do it well, it's potentially impacting us? Can you imagine that? I mean, can you imagine what a work review would be at the end of the day or at the end of the year? We sit down with employees like, I don't know what we do with him, George. You know, CEO, president, talking about their employees. Well, this guy over here, I mean, you know, he just sweeps the floor, but he does it like he's performing surgery. I mean, the building is always spotless. I mean, you come in and it's a safe work environment. It's absolutely amazing. We don't know what to do with him, Joe. You think we ought to maybe fire him, maybe reassign him? No. And why do we not think that about our place, our workplace in life? If we would perform our tasks, if we would go about doing whatever it is we do with that same level of intent, that same level of focus, that same level of purpose, then the why we're here starts to have value in anything we do. You know, I've had a tremendous number of people in my life that have invested in me. You know, I go back to growing up on a family farm. You know, I watched what would be considered simple be something so remarkable. I watched dedication through hard times, commitment to family. My parents have been married for over 50 plus years, and man, my wife, a wonderful woman, we're trying to follow in that. I tell people that I would say we've been successfully married for 29 years. She would say we've been happily married for 15 to 20, depending on the day and how I'm behaving. But part of what I believe is making me a better father, better husband, is this message. Because I go back to these self-help books and I go, I don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, where is that point? Because I got to get, life is happening. But I can remember the identity of surgeon. I can remember their purpose. Why they are here is for somebody else. I can remember that my role as a husband is to be there for my wife. I remember my role as a father is to be there for my daughter. As a son is to be there for my parents. As an employer is to be there for my employees. As a business owner is to be there for my customers. See, this identity of surgeon is really a servant. I want to tell you a story. The effect part of this thing. We're kind of, off the reservation with notes. Like I said, they were guardrails to keep us from being here all night long. But as I ask the question of why are we here, I am in fact here because of people like you. I'm here because of so many other people that have invested in me through time. The first manager I had as I went to work for a company who saw this young raw boy off of the farm and said, there might be something here. And he spent time grooming me. He spent time being a father to me, filling in gaps in world experiences that I might not have otherwise had. After leaving that job and again starting a business, there were a group of men that I met. And somewhere along the way, they said, hey, if you need some help, let us know. We've been there. And there were tough times. There were times, as I said, that helped refine this identity that I've become so passionate about. And at one point, these men guaranteed $1 million banknote for us. That means if life happened and we did our best and things didn't work out, they said, we'll take care of it. And several years down the road from that, when my brother decided to return home to farm, I said, hey, what do we owe you? This is how much you actually own of the business. And they said, remember back whenever we first said we would help you out, that you really didn't need our help, you were going to do all the work? They said it never was about the money. It never was about the business. It was about helping you and your brother. It was the why. You see, because in life, there's a lot of people that, if we break this down into who, what, when, why, and where, and we're going to break this thing up into a couple of events. Tonight, we're focusing on the who, what, and why. Later on, we're going to find out the where, when, and how. But you see, there's a lot of people that have a lot of resources available to them. A helicopter company, certainly that's a large one. They have a lot of, wow, who are you? You're a helicopter company. That's awesome. And what you do, we helped you borrow some money. Well, there's a lot of people out in this world that will help you borrow money, but the why is the difference. Because see, a lot of times the why that they would do that is because of what's in it for them. You see, the why these guys helped us had nothing to do with them. It had everything to do with helping somebody else out because they told me a story of how somebody helped them out. And that sounds incredible, and if we want to have this identity of a surgeon that maybe can be something that can guide us, that it can help us step into it and navigate life a little bit, so as we think, so we are. It's easy to say, oh yeah, I get that. Those people, they have a lot and they can do a lot and that's cool, but what about me? Now, I want to tell you a story, and I talked to him just today, and he's one of my closest friends. He's a remarkable individual who several years ago came to work with me. This man named John. And in his life, John had made some selfish decisions and taken him on a path. And for a while, it separated him from his family. He lost his family. At the point when he came to work for me, see, John didn't even have a car. But what John had done at some point in his life is he had made a decision, I'm going to stop living for myself. It's not about me, it's about others. And what I've experienced over time is this remarkably gifted, talented man pours everything he has into doing a job for the benefit of the people he works with, for the benefit of his family. And at every single corner, I found myself going, how much more can I give this person out of gratitude for what he does for me? And every time I do that, he reciprocates that. He says, man, I'm so grateful. How much more can I do for you? And then over time, his career has grown, our business has prospered, his family has prospered. And so when we think about this, we think, oh, okay, they can do a lot, but I can tell you, I've experienced the value of people that had absolutely, by the world's standard, nothing to offer but themselves, but their dedication, but this discipline, this idea of a surgeon. And he is absolutely, in every single way, the embodiment of one. Now, that's a very personal message. I mean, in the news today, anybody heard of a guy named Andrew Whitworth? Does that ring a bell to anybody? Do you live in the state of Louisiana with me? I mean, he's a hometown boy. Hometown as we get, West Monroe, we'll count him. You know, we can throw a rock and hit it from here. Andrew Whitworth. Did anybody see his interview? You see, this is a man that is at the pinnacle of a professional career. He's the oldest offensive lineman ever played in a Super Bowl. If you look at these factors that we identified early on as what are value in this world of, you know, is it some physical ability? I mean, the guy's 6'7" and 330. John may be the only person in the room that comes close to holding a candle to him. He's a physical specimen. So is that it? No, I don't think so. Monetarily, holy cow, I mean, you can go find out the man's compensated well for his gifts and his abilities. Fame? What day did we just crown over in Monroe, West Monroe? We have the Andrew Whitworth Day. I mean, salute. It's awesome. We need to applaud and reward people for things like that. But you know what? The award he received was about his contribution off the field. It wasn't for his physical prowess. It wasn't for his athletic ability. It was for the contribution he made, the Walter Payton Award. And I watched this man's interview that had so much that the world would deem as valuable, and not a bit of that came to the surface. When he was interviewed, he said, "It starts at my kitchen table. It's about teaching a lesson right here to my kids that I'm responsible for raising. You see, what I want them to understand more than anything is what it means to be a servant." He said, "I want them to understand the value and the benefit of being a part of something bigger than themselves." So if we go back to this identity, this thing that I'm trying to share with you, help you navigate, if you will just live your life and use this as a barometer, is this, you know, something a surgeon would do? This man gets it. He's an expression of it. And again, if we want to put bookends on an idea, an identity, it's easy to say, okay, I get that. That's a professional athlete. And there's somebody in here that many of us in this room know that's very dear to us. And man, does it hurt his passing. It's a guy named Wallace Martin. You see, Wallace was an incredible athlete in his time. Wallace was a football coach. He was a track and field coach. And the story was, I didn't know Wallace at this time. Wallace made a decision. He made a choice to sacrifice for something greater. As his kids were growing up, he wanted to be there for them. And so he quit a job that he was quite frankly gifted in as a college coach to coach at a little local school. My daughter attends. And make a difference in those kids' life. You say, I went to a conference. And there was a man that shared his story. And the story pointed to two key figures in his life when life got a little shaky, it got a little out of control. He said, there were two people in my life that kept me grounded, that were a focus, that returned me back to center. And one of them was a guy named Wallace Martin. I hope I can do this. He said, that was a man that took the time to come hug a kid and let him know he was loved. And so for all these things that we put up as worldly and important, that we go, that's what success is all about. That's the identity you should strive for. Wallace Martin was a man that understood this identity of a surgeon. Wallace Martin was a man that lived it out, and at his funeral you couldn't find standing room. See, he gave something up for something greater. It's part of this identity of surgeon. It's about sacrifice. You see, and we live in a world that we struggle with finding success, but this is the other great thing about a surgeon, is it balances responsibility with reward. See, you don't just wake up one morning and say, hey, I think I can do this. I got some tools. You got a problem? Let's see if we can figure this thing out. Come on in. It takes years of sacrifice. It takes dedication. It takes focus. It takes commitment. All of these things were embodied in a guy named Wallace Martin. And so that's another bookend. We look at physical abilities. I mean, again, talking about Andrew Whitworth. Well, what I don't have that ability. I wasn't an athlete. Maybe I don't have as much intellect as somebody. Has anybody out in here ever heard of Nick Vujicic? I probably didn't pronounce that right. He's written a book called Life Without Limbs. He's a man that was born with no arms and no legs, and is one of the most inspirational people you will ever see in your life. See, this was a person that chose not to let the things that were out of control minimize his life. See, he said, I'm going to make a difference in this world. It's something out there to do. I want to try it. And literally, this guy that couldn't be on the farther end of the physical spectrum than a guy named Andrew Whitworth, around the world has changed millions of people's lives through his inspiration, his spirit. You see this identity of a surgeon making a difference in people's lives. There really doesn't seem to be any barriers of entry to it. But I want to close with something tonight that I think really represents this, and it hits really close to home. You see, my beautiful daughter's in the room. And I remember when she was 8 years old wanting to teach her a lesson. She may crawl under a chair as I teach this. See, we were picking up some bricks in the yard. We're doing a little landscaping project. And I said, baby, this is an opportunity to teach. I'm going to give you some money. I'll give you $4 an hour. 8 years old, $4 an hour. We have just scored. This is awesome. Math was easy, 50 cents for every year you've been on earth. And she went out and we worked out for a while. We were putting them on a pallet. We were doing the landscape. And then she'd stack some bricks. And then she'd go ride her bicycle. And then she'd come back and she'd stack a brick. And then she'd go off and get a drink of water. And then she'd stack one more brick. And then she'd go to, I don't know what else. And I remember the point where she asked, she said, Daddy, have I made $4 yet? And I said, baby, I love you. No. She's like, how is that possible? We've been out here forever. I'm like, no, I've been out here forever. I said, baby, I love you, but I'm paying you to do something that benefits me, that benefits us as a family. I'm paying you to stack bricks. And of course, at 8 years old, we're in an argument already. Well, I don't like stacking bricks. And I was like, well, that's not the point. And I told her, I said, darling, I love you. I said, you can stack the bricks and you can receive a reward for that. You can be paid for it. Or you can have a bad attitude and I may have to let you go. Or if you have a great attitude and do a great job, I may give you a bonus. And she said, well, but Daddy, I'm not going to be a brick stacker when I grow up. I'm going to be a ballet dancer. And in that moment, I remember saying, darling, there's a lot of things in life you're not going to like that you're going to have to do. Okay? See, this identity of surgeon, there's a lot of things in life that come your way you're not going to like. There's things that are going to be out of your control. That identity, if we find our identity in the who it is that we are and the what it is that we do, if that's where we're looking for our sense of purpose, our sense of belonging, that can be pretty elusive at times. And in those times, you can find yourself really frustrated and really lost and really asking this question of why am I here? But if you find your identity in this value of serving other people, sometimes it's hard. Just like it was for an 8-year-old to understand the value of stacking bricks. But I remember telling her, it's going to be hard to find yourself being invited to do the things you want to do if you're not first willing to give your best to the things you don't want to do. To wrap it up for this evening, and I'm so grateful for y'all being here. letting me share something I've become passionate about that I hopefully maybe you can carry out of here and make a little bit of difference in your life. As we were planning for this night, trying to pick it when we're going to do this, we picked a Monday night. It's the only night she doesn't have ballet, except for when she does have ballet. I don't know. I can't keep up with the rules. And the three in the back are laughing because I can't keep track of the schedule. It's like, we don't have it on Monday night. We have it on Monday night, except when we don't have it on Monday night and Tuesday night. Keep up. And so I planned this because I wanted her to be here. And she's got a job now. This is awesome. And it's alarming because she can drive, which is also awesome and alarming all at the same time. 16-year-old girl in a car, it's a big step in life. And so she's got a job, and she's helping with dance. Missy Crane Ballet, salute. She's helping teach the little ones, the little 2- and 3-year-olds, which is cool. And so this is a big deal. She's got her job. She's earned a little bit of money with gas. And one night she comes running down the hall. I don't know if she was running down the hall. It's good for effect. She was coming down the hall, and she said, well, I quit my job. I'm like, are you kidding me? Failed as parents? What do you mean? You just started. And she said, well, Dad, she said, I knew your thing was going to be planned on Monday nights, and I didn't think I'd be able to make it if I kept my job. So I quit my job so I could be there to support you. Wow. What she didn't understand is this is only going to be 3 nights. It's the little things at age 16 years old. My daughter sacrificed something that was so important to her to support something that's so important to me. I think about this message. Now, we did have to tell her, baby, it's only 3 nights. I got to go get my job back. She was down the hall. Missy Crane, I'm sorry. It was false alarm. But if we think about this, what would our world be like? What would our lives be like if we saw ourselves in this capacity? What would the lives of other people be like if we saw them in that capacity? What if we gave that same level of respect and dignity to them that we give to a surgeon? The level of gratitude for changing our lives for the better. I can tell you the people that helped us borrow a very large amount of money, I've spent 20 years trying to repay them for that. I don't know that I ever will. But I see a person named John Sharp that made some mistakes in life that changed his life, that continues to benefit my life in that same light. There's no difference. But that's not how we normally think. That's not how we normally see people. And more tragically than that, that's not a lot of times how we see ourselves. So, with that, it's a choice. You're not born a surgeon. You're not born whatever it is that you do. It's about a choice of how you're going to conduct yourself as life changes, as different things come your way that you step into. You have to retrain your mind the value and the importance of benefiting other people, and then in turn it comes back to you. So with that, I guess my challenge for you tonight is, how are you going to live? How are you going to see other people? How are you going to see yourself? Why are we here? We're here for other people. And when we understand that, everything changes.